Your cruise itinerary has a problem. At least one port on it is going to disappoint you. Not because Europe is not extraordinary, but because someone built your itinerary around commission structures and ship capacity rather than your actual experience on the ground. 6 European cruise ports in 2026 are genuine value destroyers. 6 are worth rearranging your entire vacation around. We ranked all 12 from worst to best, on crowd data, shore day value, safety, and the honest experience of passengers who reported back without a loyalty points conflict of interest. But let's start with the 6 worst. Number 6. Dubrovnik, Croatia. Let us start with the one that everybody defends until they actually go. Dubrovnik is genuinely one of the most beautiful walled cities in the world. The limestone walls, the terracotta rooftops, the Adriatic below, everything the photographs show, and something else they do not show. On days when multiple large cruise ships dock simultaneously, which happens regularly during peak season, Dubrovnik's Old Town processes a volume of passengers that UNESCO has formally warned is causing measurable physical damage to the site's stone surfaces and infrastructure. That warning is documented, it is public record, and it means you are visiting a heritage site that is being destroyed by the number of people visiting it. The Stradun, the main limestone thoroughfare running through the Old Town, operates at crowd densities during peak ship hours that make walking it feel less like sightseeing and more like being processed through a very beautiful corridor. The Croatian government has introduced passenger caps on the number of cruise passengers permitted inside the Old Town walls simultaneously. Those caps are a response to documented overcrowding that had reached levels affecting the physical integrity of the limestone itself. When a government introduces a cap to protect a site from its visitors, that is a different category of problem from ordinary tourist congestion. A dinner on the Stradun runs between 40 and 80 euros per person. Those prices reflect the address, not the kitchen. The same quality of Dalmatian cooking is available in the neighborhoods above and behind the Old Town walls at half that price, served to a local clientele that has no interest in the tourist corridor pricing. KBC Dubrovnik on Roka Mišetica provides emergency care. Transfer to Split or Zagreb is required for specialist procedures, approximately 2.5 hours by road or 45 minutes by air. For senior passengers with any cardiovascular consideration, that transfer timeline is worth knowing before you step off the gangway. The good news is that Dubrovnik between 5 in the evening and 9 the next morning, after the day passengers return to their ships, becomes a genuinely extraordinary place. The Stradun is walkable. The viewpoints from the walls are unhurried. The restaurants serve the same food at the same prices to a crowd that has reduced to something the city can actually accommodate. If your ship overnights, use that window. If it does not, you are sharing the best of the city with several thousand other people during the only hours you have. The next port has none of Dubrovnik's heritage beauty. What it has instead is a pricing trap so well engineered that most passengers do not notice it until they are already inside it. But before we get there, if this breakdown is changing how you think about your 2026 cruise itinerary, subscribe right now. This channel publishes cruise port rankings, shore day intelligence, and honest travel breakdowns every week. Number 5. Nassau, Bahamas. Now, before anyone points out that Nassau is not in Europe, this slot represents the structural equivalent in terms of what it delivers. Nassau is the comparison point, the port that every overcommercial European cruise stop is trying to replicate. The model where passengers are funneled from the gangway directly into a commercial zone designed to extract maximum spend in minimum time. Nassau's port area is one of the most aggressively commercialized tourist zones in the Caribbean. A local beer that costs $2 in a Nassau neighborhood bar runs $15 in the tourist corridor. The taxi situation is unmetered, unregulated, and documented in cruise passenger forums with a consistency that makes the pattern impossible to miss. Drivers quote one price before you get in. The conversation about the actual price happens when you arrive. The area south of downtown Nassau, known as Over the Hill, carries gang activity at a level that makes it completely off-limits for any tourist exploration. And the proximity of that zone to the cruise terminal creates a geography that independent walkers can inadvertently enter without warning. The Atlantis Resort on Paradise Island, the destination most prominently marketed to Nassau cruise passengers, charges a day pass of approximately $135 per adult for access to its water park facilities. For a family of 4, that day pass cost alone exceeds $500 before food, transport, or any other expenditure. For senior passengers, Doctors Hospital on Shirley Street provides private emergency care at an international standard. Nassau is on this list not as a destination to avoid entirely, but as a warning about what port commercialization looks like at its most extreme. When you see that pattern emerging at a European port, and you will see it, Nassau is the reference point that helps you identify it immediately. The next port is in Europe and has taken the Nassau model and applied it to one of the most historically significant cities in the Mediterranean. Number 4. Civitavecchia, Italy. Here is the thing about Civitavecchia. The port itself is not the problem. It is the gap between what the port promises and what the day actually delivers. Civitavecchia is marketed as the gateway to Rome, which it is. Rome is approximately 80 kilometers from the port. That distance requires either a 45-minute train journey from the Civitavecchia station, a journey that itself requires a walk or local transport from the cruise terminal to the train station, or a 90-minute organized tour bus transfer in traffic that is unpredictable in both directions. A cruise shore day in Rome, accounting for the transfer each way, the time on the ground, and the return deadline before the ship departs, gives passengers approximately 4 to 5 hours inside the city. 4 to 5 hours in Rome. That is enough time to see either the Vatican or the Colosseum. Not both, not either comfortably. Not with the time to sit down for a proper Roman meal at a trattoria in Trastevere, rather than eating from a tourist-facing establishment near whichever landmark you chose. The organized shore excursion from Civitavecchia to Rome currently runs between 80 and 140 euros per person, depending on the package. For a bus seat and a guided walk through sites, you will not have adequate time to absorb. The Civitavecchia port itself has a commercial zone immediately adjacent to the terminal that offers a more honest alternative for passengers who choose not to make the Rome transfer. The historic center of Civitavecchia, the Fort Michelangelo designed by Bramante and Michelangelo, the Museo Nazionale Tirite, and the seafront promenade represent a genuinely walkable half-day that costs almost nothing. Most passengers do not know this exists because the cruise excursion desk has no financial interest in promoting a free walking tour of the port city. For senior passengers, the physical demands of navigating Rome's heritage sites within a compressed time window, in heat that regularly exceeds 35 degrees Celsius during summer, is a genuine planning consideration that the shore excursion brochure does not address. Ospedale San Paolo in Civitavecchia provides basic emergency care. Serious cases require the transfer to Rome, a journey that mirrors the tourist transfer in time and route. The next port is in a genuinely beautiful Mediterranean city, and its specific problem is one that the cruise industry has been deliberately quiet about for reasons that are not hard to understand once you see the numbers. Number 3. Mykonos, Greece. Oh, Mykonos. Where do we start? The island delivers exactly what it promises to a very specific audience looking for a very specific experience. For everyone else, it is the most expensive ratio of cost to genuine reward of any Greek island in the cruise circuit. Beach Club Day passes on Paradise and Super Paradise run between 50 and 150 euros per person. A sun lounger and pool access. That is what you get. Cocktails at those clubs cost between 20 and 30 euros each. A dinner in Little Venice, the most photographed neighborhood, runs between 60 and 120 euros per person. For food that the setting prices more aggressively than the kitchen justifies, the famous windmills on the Cato Mili Hill above Hora are genuinely photogenic and genuinely free to view. But the walk between the windmill viewpoint and any of the beach clubs, restaurants, or entertainment venues that represent the rest of the Mykonos offer involves repeated financial decisions at price points that accumulate rapidly. Here is what makes Mykonos particularly problematic as a cruise stop rather than a stay destination. You are paying peak Mykonos prices for a fraction of a day. A passenger spending 500 euros on a Mykonos shore day that covers a beach club pass, 2 cocktails, lunch, and a dinner before returning to the ship is experiencing a cost per hour rate that makes every other port on this list look modest. The cost per hour calculation on a Mykonos cruise stop is the most unfavorable of any port on this list. The Mykonos Health Center handles minor emergencies. Serious cardiac or trauma cases require air transfer to Athens, approximately 45 minutes by helicopter. For senior passengers with time-sensitive medical conditions, that transfer window is a planning consideration that the island's luxury positioning tends to obscure rather than communicate. The next port has none of Mykonos' luxury problem. Its issue is something far more immediate and far more frustrating, because it involves what happens to your port day before it even properly begins. Number 2. Kotor, Montenegro. Wait, Kotor is supposed to be one of the best ports in the Mediterranean, and in many ways it still is. But here is what has happened to it in the past 5 years. Kotor has become one of the most visited cruise destinations in the Adriatic, and the infrastructure of a town of 13,000 permanent residents has not kept pace with the volume of passengers that multiple large ships simultaneously deliver. On days when several large vessels dock, and this is now a regular occurrence from May through October, the narrow medieval lanes of the Old Town become a pedestrian management challenge rather than a leisurely exploration. The lanes in the Old Town of Kotor range between 1 and 3 meters wide. When those lanes are carrying the combined passenger load of multiple large cruise ships, the experience of moving through them resembles a very scenic pedestrian traffic jam, more than it resembles the tranquil medieval exploration the destination photographs imply. The path up to the fortress, one of the genuine highlights of any Kotor visit, involves over 1,500 steps in conditions that become genuinely difficult when the lanes below are operating at capacity and the steps above are shared with the same volume. The specific frustration here is that Kotor is genuinely extraordinary. The Old Town walls, the Byzantine churches, the cats, which have their own museum, the bay enclosed by mountains on 3 sides. All of it is real, and all of it rewards the visitor who has time and space to experience it. The cruise passenger who has 6 hours between ship arrival and departure does not have time and space. They have 6 hours and 3,000 other people with the same 6 hours. The General Hospital Kotor on Dobrota Street provides basic emergency care. For senior passengers, Kotor's cobblestone streets and fortress stairway require genuine mobility planning before committing to the full site experience. Cobblestone that is centuries old has an uneven surface that standard cruise ship footwear does not always accommodate safely. The next and final entry in the worst section is the one that will generate the most debate, because it is one of the most beloved Mediterranean cruise stops in existence, and it has a problem that most passengers discover only after the ship is already moving toward the next port. Number 1. Worst, Santorini, Greece. Let us be honest with each other about Santorini. The photographs are real. The blue domes of Oia against the whitewashed walls in the Aegean below. Every photograph you have ever seen of Santorini is honest about what the island looks like. What those photographs cannot show is what it feels like to experience that view with the 5,000 other people who are standing in exactly the same spot trying to photograph the same image. Santorini receives approximately 2 million visitors per year on an island with a permanent population of 15,000. A significant proportion of those visitors arrive by cruise ship. The tendering process from the cruise anchorage to the old port of Fira, because Santorini has no cruise dock and all ships tender passengers ashore, involves waiting for a tender boat crossing the caldera and then either a cable car ride with a 45-minute queue each direction during peak season or a donkey path that has been the subject of documented animal welfare concerns from international organizations. That is before you have started your port day. The bus system connecting Fira to Oia, the village where the most famous sunset photographs are taken, runs on a schedule that does not always align with the shore day window. Taxis from Fira to Oia during peak hours can involve waits of 30 to 45 minutes for a 10-minute journey. Accommodation in Oia during peak season runs between 300 and 800 euros per night for a caldera view room. You are not paying that. You are a day tripper in that environment. And the day tripper experience at Santorini's most photographed locations involves the most extreme people-to-space ratio of any port on this list. A dinner in Oia runs between 60 and 120 euros per person. For food that the caldera view prices more aggressively than the kitchen delivers, the Santorini Health Center handles routine emergencies. Serious cases require air transfer to Athens by a 45-minute flight. For senior passengers with cardiovascular considerations, the physical demands of the tender process combined with the cable car queue time or the donkey path alternative make Santorini's physical logistics a genuine pre-departure planning conversation. That is the 6 worst. Every one of them has something genuinely appealing about it. Every one of them has a specific, documented, avoidable problem that the cruise itinerary building process was not designed to tell you about. What comes next is completely different. 6 ports where the experience matches what your cruise brochure implied it would be, where the shore day actually delivers value for the time you have, where the crowd levels, the pricing, and the authenticity all align into something genuinely worth the journey. The best cruise port on this list is one that most passengers cannot find on a map without help. Let us get into it. Here are the 6 best. Number 6 best, Kotor Old Town. Early morning wait. Kotor just appeared on the worst half of this list. Here is the thing. Kotor during peak ship hours is the experience we just described. Kotor between 6 and 9 in the morning, before the first tenders arrive from the ships anchored in the bay, is a completely different proposition. The lanes of the Old Town in that window belong to the cats, the coffee shop owners setting up their tables, the locals walking to work through streets that their families have been walking through for 5 centuries, and the handful of passengers who figured out that the early tender is the entire game. The Kotor Old Town in that morning light, with the fortress visible above the walls and the bay completely still below them, is one of the finest walled city experiences in the Mediterranean. The morning light on the limestone is a different quality from the midday sun. Cooler, softer, more forgiving. The coffee at a local bakery in the Old Town cost between 1 and 2 euros. The climb to the fortress, with no queue, in cooler morning air, delivers a view across the Bay of Kotor that justifies the 1,500 steps in a way that the midday version does not. At the summit, the bay stretches below you in every direction. The cruise ships visible on the water look small against the mountain scale of the surrounding Dinaric Alps. It is one of the finest views available from any cruise port in Europe. For senior passengers, the early morning timing means cooler temperatures, manageable crowd conditions, and a pace that the midday experience does not provide. The lesson here is not a destination lesson, it is a timing lesson, and it applies to more ports on this list than just Kotor. If this list changed even one port on your 2026 cruise itinerary, hit the like button right now. It helps this video reach every cruise passenger currently planning their European itinerary who deserves this information before they commit. The next port requires no early morning strategy. It is genuinely excellent at any hour of the day, and the specific reason why tells you everything about what a well-managed cruise destination actually looks like. Number 5. Best, Valletta, Malta. Valletta is the smallest capital city in the European Union. 0.8 square kilometers of a peninsular fortification jutting into the Grand Harbor of Malta. Every square meter of it was purpose-built in the 16th century by the Knights of St. John following the Great Siege of 1565, and it shows. Not as a themed recreation, as a living, functioning capital city that happens to have been entirely designed at once, built at once, and inhabited continuously since 1571. That coherence of design is visible in every street. The grid of Baroque avenues running from the city gate to the fortified tip of the peninsula feels intentional in a way that cities which evolved organically over centuries cannot match. The Grand Harbor view from the Upper Baracca Gardens is one of the finest natural harbor panoramas in the Mediterranean, free to access, 5 minutes from the cruise terminal, open at any hour. The 3 cities visible across the water, Vittoriosa, Senglea, and Cospicua, 3 fortified peninsulas that mirror Valletta across the Grand Harbor, create a view of such historical and visual complexity that passengers who spend their entire shore day simply looking at it in different lights and from different angles are not wasting their time. Malta is an English-speaking country. English is not a tourist accommodation here. It is a genuine daily language inherited from British administration that removes the navigation friction that other Mediterranean ports impose on passengers without Italian, Greek, or Croatian. A full lunch of traditional Maltese food, rabbit stew braised in wine, ftira bread, local marsavan, or meridiana wine, at a proper Valletta restaurant away from the immediately tourist-facing establishments runs between 15 and 25 euros per person. That pricing reflects a local economy, not a tourist extraction model. Mater Dei Hospital in Mesida, approximately 4 kilometers from Valletta, is Malta's national hospital with full specialist and emergency capacity, one of the largest and best-equipped medical facilities in the Mediterranean. For senior passengers, Valletta presents a specific practical challenge worth knowing. The city is built on a peninsula with a pronounced slope from the city gate to the waterfront, but it operates a free public elevator system, the Baracca lift connecting the lower harbor level to the upper city. That lift makes the finest viewpoints in the capital accessible to passengers of any mobility level without the stair demand that the gradient implies. The next port is even smaller than Valletta, and the specific experience it offers cannot be replicated at any other cruise stop in the Mediterranean. Number 4. Best, Kotor, Montenegro. We know Kotor again, but the distinction between the worst and best versions of this port is the entire point. A passenger who takes the early tender, reaches the Old Town before the crowds, climbs to San Giovanni Fortress before 9, and descends back through lanes that are still quiet enough to stop and examine the Byzantine church interiors without managing their position relative to tour groups is having a genuinely extraordinary morning. The Cathedral of St. Tryphon inside the Old Town dates to 1166 and contains relics of the patron saint that have been venerated on this site for over 8 centuries. At 7 in the morning with no tour group ahead of you, standing inside it requires no crowd management, only attention. The same passenger who arrives at 11 on a peak day is having the experience described in the worst section. Same port, same entrance fee of 8 euros for the fortress climb, completely different shore day. For families, the morning timing means the Old Town lanes are navigable with young children without the crowd dynamics that make afternoon navigation genuinely difficult. The Cats of Kotor, which have their own dedicated museum inside the Old Town, are most active and most approachable in the early morning hours before the midday heat drives them to the shaded interior ledges where they become far less cooperative subjects for family photographs. The General Hospital Kotor on Dobrota Street provides basic emergency care. The message here is simple. Know your tender schedule. Take the first one. What comes after is entirely worth it. The next port requires no early morning strategy. It is simply one of the finest small city cruise experiences available in Northern Europe, and almost nobody's itinerary includes it. Number 3. Best Tallinn, Estonia. Tallinn has the finest preserved medieval old town in Northern Europe. That is not a travel marketing claim. It is the conclusion of UNESCO evaluators who designated the Vanalin a World Heritage Site in 1997, specifically on the basis of the exceptional integrity of its medieval urban fabric. Not restoration, not reconstruction, the originals. The town hall on Raikoja Platz has been operating in its current building since 1404. The pharmacy on the corner of the square, Reapteek, has been operating continuously since 1422, one of the oldest continuously operating pharmacies in Europe. Here is what makes Tallinn extraordinary as a cruise port specifically. The cruise terminal at the Tallinn passenger port is approximately 10 minutes on foot from the Old Town entrance. No tender, no bus transfer, no 90-minute organized excursion just to reach the destination. You walk off the ship and you are there. That walk takes you along the waterfront past the historic city walls, through the Viru Gate, one of the finest surviving medieval city gate complexes in Northern Europe, and directly into the heart of a medieval urban environment that has been inhabited continuously for over 7 centuries. The Toompea Castle district at the upper level of the Old Town provides views over the lower city rooftops and across Tallinn Bay that require only the funicular or a 15-minute walk up the hill to access. The Alexander Nevsky Cathedral on Toompea, a Russian Orthodox church built in 1900 during the period of Russian imperial rule, sits in deliberate visual dominance above the Gothic and Baroque structures surrounding it. That architectural conversation between empires tells the entire political history of the Baltic in 3 buildings. A full dinner of traditional Estonian cuisine, wild boar, black bread, locally brewed craft beer from one of Tallinn's growing number of artisan producers, at a proper Old Town restaurant, runs between 20 and 35 euros per person. A tram ride anywhere in the city costs €1.50. North Estonia Medical Center on J. Sutist Road provides full specialist and emergency capacity with English-speaking staff at every level of service. For senior passengers, Tallinn's Old Town has cobblestone streets that require reasonable footwear. But the distances between the major landmarks are short, and the terrain between the lower and upper Old Town is manageable via the funicular for anyone who finds the hill approach demanding. The next port is in a completely different part of Europe, and what it delivers is so specific and so unlike anything else in the cruise circuit that passengers who experience it consistently describe it as the highlight of the entire voyage. Number 2. Best Kotor to Montenegro interior. We are back in Montenegro one more time. But this time we are talking about what happens when you leave Kotor entirely. The cruise industry sells Kotor as the Old Town, and the Old Town is genuinely worth seeing. What almost no shore excursion desk promotes is the drive 40 minutes inland from the port to Lake Skadar. Lake Skadar is the largest lake in the Balkans. It sits on the border between Montenegro and Albania. Its surface is covered with water lilies from late spring through early summer. A carpet of white and yellow blooms across water that reflects the Montenegrine mountains above them in conditions that produce photographs of a quality that passengers consistently describe as the finest of their entire voyage. Its shores host one of the most significant pelican populations in Europe. The Dalmatian pelican, one of the largest flying birds in the world, nests on the lake's islands in colonies that have been protected since the establishment of the Skadar Lake National Park. The water is so clear in the upper reaches that the lake bottom is visible at depths that seem implausible. A boat tour on Lake Skadar costs between 20 and 30 euros per person through a local operator arranged independently rather than through the ship. A full Montenegrin lunch at a restaurant on the lake's edge, grilled trout from the lake itself, smoked carp, local wine from the Krumnica vineyards on the southern shore, runs between 15 and 25 euros per person. For families, the lake's calm water and the boat tours, designed for all ages, make it one of the most genuinely enjoyable shore day alternatives on this list. Children who have spent previous port days navigating ancient stone stairways and medieval lanes tend to respond to the open water and the bird life of Skadar with an enthusiasm that the heritage tourism circuit does not consistently produce. For senior passengers, the boat access eliminates the walking demands that the Kotor Old Town Fortress climb imposes. The lake-level scenery is accessible from the boat deck without any gradient challenge. The General Hospital Kotor covers emergency care for the wider region. The point here is not just about Lake Scudder, it is about the principle. The best cruise port experience is frequently not the experience the ship is selling. It is what exists 30 minutes beyond the port when you are willing to organize it independently. One port remains, and it earns the top position by doing something that every entry on the worst half of this list failed to do. It delivers a genuine, unhurried, unhyped experience where the value is obvious, the crowd is manageable, and the memory outlasts the photographs. Number 1. Best, Brugge, Belgium. The cruise port of Zeebrugge is approximately 14 kilometers from the center of Bruges. That distance is covered by a regular shuttle bus from the terminal. The journey takes approximately 25 minutes. At the end of it is one of the most perfectly preserved medieval cities in Northern Europe. And here is the thing that separates Brugge from every other port on this list: the comparison port. Brugge is often compared to Ghent. Ghent is 40 minutes away by train and delivers comparable medieval architecture with fewer tourists. That comparison is accurate. But Brugge as a cruise port, rather than as a destination requiring multi-day accommodation, operates at a crowd level that is actually manageable for a well-timed shore day. The canal system, the guild house facades, the marked square with the belfry rising above it, these are real, and they are extraordinary. The belfry of Brugge has been climbing above the market square since the 13th century. Its carillon of 47 bells plays at the quarter hour and on the hour, and the sound of those bells across the medieval square creates an acoustic experience that the canal photographs consistently fail to capture. The view from the belfry's summit, up 366 steps, covers the flat Flemish landscape in every direction. On a clear day, the North Sea is visible to the west. The medieval roofline of Bruges spreads below it without a single building above 4 stories interrupting the historic skyline. Entry to the belfry costs 16 euros. A proper Belgian lunch of mussels and white wine with frites and a local Bruges ale at a restaurant on the canal, not the main tourist square, runs between 25 and 35 euros per person. The restaurants on the marked square charge tourist square prices calibrated for the cruise passenger who has not yet learned the 2 streets back principle. The restaurants 2 streets back charge local prices for the same quality of Belgian cooking. The same applies to the chocolate shops. A chocolate shop run by a local chocolatier, De Klerk, and the chocolate line are 2 worth finding, rather than a franchise operation sells pralines at prices that reflect the ingredients rather than the address. The Groningen Museum, which houses one of the finest collections of Flemish primitive paintings in the world, including works by Jan van Eyck and Hans Memling, charges 12 euros for entry and operates at crowd levels that allow the kind of unhurried viewing that the Uffizi in Florence cannot provide at any price. Jan Yperman Hospital in nearby Ypres and AZ St. John Hospital in Brugge itself provide emergency and specialist care. For senior passengers, Brugge's flat terrain, its navigable canal-side walking paths, and its compact historic center make it the most physically accessible of any port on this list. The Minnewater Park, at the southern edge of the historic center, where the canal widens into a lake surrounded by willow trees and swans, provides a genuinely restful hour that passengers who have been moving through the heritage circuit all morning consistently describe as the finest 30 minutes of their shore day. It costs nothing to enter. It requires nothing to enjoy. For families, the canal boat tours that operate throughout the historic center run between 12 and 15 euros per adult and provide a completely different perspective on the medieval architecture than the walking routes alone deliver. Children who resist medieval churches consistently do not resist 30 minutes on a flat-bottomed boat, moving through a city that was built around its waterways in the 13th century. The best European cruise port in 2026 is not the one with the most famous photograph. It is not the one with the most aggressive marketing budget. It is a medieval city in Belgium that you can reach in 25 minutes from the terminal, walk around at human pace, eat well in, and return from genuinely feeling like you spent your shore day on something real. That is what a good cruise port is supposed to feel like. Brugge delivers it more consistently than anywhere else on this list. Thanks for watching. If this list changed even one port on your 2026 cruise itinerary, drop it in the comments right now. Tell us which port you are skipping and which one you are now prioritizing. We read every single comment and we answer as many as we can. For more cruise port rankings covering the Caribbean, the Norwegian fjords, and Southeast Asia with the same level of detail on value, safety, and honest shore day intelligence. Click the next video on the left. We will see you there.